Today's December 12th, 2022, and this is Daisy. And is she ever cute? She's a tiny little pony who has been referred to me due to a lot of pain, uncooperativeness, kicking, and just generally not being herself during saddling and riding. So expected a lot of body pain. I've never met this pony, so we took our time. She was a little bit nervous at first, but she warmed up quite quickly. She's very, very, very cute and sweet. So I've really enjoyed her. I've also brought her sister in. Her sister's name is Dolly, and Dolly is very impatient and quite distractive, but it's been better having them together because they are quite hurt-bound. So starting off, I started just checking her, general check on her to make sure that she's feeling okay, and everything turned out good. I can't see anything that's obviously bothering her. So I started after her general check into her head. Her eyes are bright. I don't see any problems with anything in her head. Throughout her mandible in her jaw is where I started seeing some problems. Usually when I evaluate or give a review on a horse, I go through all the different parts, both sides, but I'm actually going to go down the left side first and the right side second because she does have a lot of problems going on. Her left hand side, her mandible on this side, held a lot of tension. She wasn't really sure what I was doing at first, so it took a little time to kind of gain her trust, but she did release that tension in that side and kind of softened a bit, although I don't think she totally relaxed at all. She has a lot of pain in a lot of places, so she would relax and then she would kind of get uptight and then she'd relax again. So that's one of the spots that it took a bit of time. She's actually more relaxed now than she had been earlier, so that's quite nice. So once we got the tension out of that jaw, I went into her neck. Her complex, which is just behind her ear, felt good. As I went down her neck, her rhomboid, kind of mid-neck, was quite tender and tight, and she really enjoyed having that worked on. I worked a long time in her neck, very slow progression, and I just gave her lots of time to kind of settle in and enjoy what we were doing. So the neck felt really good when I was done. It relaxed. The muscles were quite soft. Her neck stretching isn't great, and I think her neck is bothering her a bit, but I think her bigger problem is probably in her shoulders. But on this side, I didn't get a good neck stretch at all. I went into her scapula and shoulders next. Going down into her scapula was extremely tight. It's still pretty tight, but it did release once I was able to get her to stand for me. She's very worried about it, and a lot of banding in front of the scapula, a lot of really tight muscles, and very, very sore. So I did eventually get in there, and I did get a release in that scapula, which was great. But she was really worried, very, very sore in her shoulders. All the muscles in her shoulder itself, right around from the front, down through the outside of her muscle, down into the underneath her leg, all very, very sore. Her front end is really, really bothering her, and you can see now she's worried. She doesn't want me really bugging her too much in there, so I won't. But I did get release on a lot of it. I got a lot of heat to the surface, which is great because that means there's good blood flow, which encourages healing of any problems. So that was good. She's actually really relaxing now, which is great. From there, I go back and forth, but from there I'll tell you next. Her withers. Dolly, don't. Her withers. Oh, serious problem with her withers. Both sides are bad, but her left-hand side withers, she had extremely bad pain. I worked very specifically in there, worked each tension place I could find, each piece of banding. I think there might be some scarring in there that I was able to kind of release and soften. But as I worked through her withers, she actually was kicking at me. She was lifting that back leg. She was reaching out. She did not want me touching it. She tried really hard to be a good girl, but it really did hurt. And so I felt quite bad that I was causing distress. But I think now that I've done it, it is a bit more relaxed and a little bit less painful. But But I think it's definitely something that needs to be continued to be watched and probably worked with, just to keep it kind of supple and see if we can get some healing going out through there. Her girth line. On this side, it was also very, very sore down under her girth line, which is her serratus muscles. Sometimes when we see pain in here, we think there's probably an ulcer problem. I don't know if that's her case or if she just has very sore muscles. I'm suspecting it's probably sore muscles with her. Again, she was trying to kick me during that time when I was under there. She didn't like it at all. So I did the best I could. I didn't want to stress her out, but she did kind of relax a bit, and it became less painful as I went. So that was kind of nice to see as well. So going along her back, her thoracic vertebrae and the muscles that surround it were quite sore, quite sensitive. She had lots of spasming through here, the withers and just down through her back area. So I worked through that really slowly, gave her lots and lots of time to relax, and she did pretty good with that. Down through her ribs on the left, felt really quite good, no problems. I didn't see any problems around under her belly or anything. On this side, her lumbar is very, very sore. I got above her, and she actually, I expected she was going to try to kick me, but she didn't. She was really good. I was able to get above her. I really worked the lumbar, and did it with tail stretching, and she actually did a lot of yawning through that. So I think she enjoyed it. I think it felt really good. And so I think that has settled down a bit for her on this side for sure. So that was nice. I tested her sacroiliac joint. I tested her lumbosacral joint and her hip joints. Now these two, the sacroiliac and the lumbosacral joint, both to me feel weak. She had a lot of give in them, a little bit of kind of snapping, kind of like when you crack your fingernails or your fingers and stuff. So we had a bit of that, and so to me that indicates weakness. Her hips aren't in a really strong state at the moment. The muscles as well were quite sensitive, especially through her glutes. She's a sore little girl. The rest of the hip felt pretty good. This back leg stretch felt actually pretty good. She was quite cooperative. Same with her front legs. Her front legs were really, really good stretching. Her neck, no. So that was on her left-hand side. Now on her right-hand side, come on, little girl. Yeah, it's a good girl. Okay, so right-hand side. Her head and jaw was really good on this side. No tension. That felt really great. No problems in her complex here either. As I went through her neck, her rhomboid, which again is along the top portion of her neck, was quite stiff. Shh, stop. Was quite stiff and quite painful. She really, really enjoyed having that massage though. She really leaned into it. Her head dropped. And so it felt good. So we worked on that for a long time and gave her lots and lots of work on her neck muscles. Let's see. Again, her neck didn't stretch well on this side. Probably worse on her right than it was on her left. For whatever reason, this side seems to be a little bit more stuck as far as stretch goes. Her scapula, again, very tight, very painful. It's really hard to get working in there. She didn't like it at all, and this side is still pretty tight. I was able to get it to release, but she's tightened back up again now. So it's quite painful going through this entire shoulder again, just like the other side, which isn't great. I don't really like that, to see that in a horse, because they carry most of their weight on the front end. Her pec muscles, both sides, which is the muscle that goes underneath the front of her, was quite painful. There's a lot more tension on her right side of her pec, I noticed. So I tried to release that, and it did soften a bit, and she was a little bit more comfortable with it and not so worried as I did that as well. Withers, again, this side, the right-hand side, her withers were also very painful on this side. I didn't get the kicking response, but she was really, really sore, and it took a long time to kind of get her to relax. She's still a little bit worried about me being in there. She's watching me. As I was working, I could feel spasms coming through these muscles, and into her shoulder. So the front end of this horse is really painful, which is a concern. Poor little thing. She's so sweet. She tried really hard to be very good and tolerate me, so I give her credit. Along her girth line, on the right hand side, it felt really, really great. I didn't see any problems with that at all. Let's see, her thoracic vertebrae, again, along her back, there was tension. I think the tension is coming from the shoulder because she's sore and she's trying not to hurt herself by doing something funny, and that muscle's tight. So I think I was able to get a pretty good release along there, and she settled down a little bit. So that was great. The one thing I did notice on the right hand side, her intercostal muscle, quit, in her lower back, which is kind of the top of where their ribs are, which is kind of right here on her back. She had extreme pain in there. She almost crumbled, like she kind of lowered herself. Right now I'm just kind of putting a tiny bit of pressure, and she's not standing. She's kind of lifting her back feet. It's sore in there, and I don't know if she's had an injury to it, but I did work it quite a bit. It might be sore tomorrow just to the touch, because I did go quite deep just trying to figure out what's going on. But that's another spot I think we need to watch and kind of monitor it. I don't know if the saddle's hurting it. It probably is if she's saddled. So there's something to keep an eye on there. So it's the intercostal muscle. Going back into her hips on this side. Oh, sorry, her lumbar. Again, lumbar was sore. But again, she was extremely good letting me work through her lumbar with tail stretches, and she enjoyed that. So I think that part of her's feeling really good now. Her lumbar feels good, and she's happy with it, I think. Her lumbosacral joint, sacroiliac joint, again, is weak on this side. Her whole hind end seems weak to me. Her glute muscles weren't as sore on this side as they were on the other, but they were a little bit tender in spots. I could feel a little bit of tension run through her as I worked through them, but she seemed okay. Hips are weak. Maybe she's out of shape. I'm not really sure, but she's kind of a hot mess at the moment. So poor little girl. I feel kind of bad for her. This back leg, she did not like me working with it at all, and I'm wondering if maybe she's been disciplined funny, because I think she acted like she was worried I was going to take a swing at her or something, and she just didn't want me touching it. I did eventually get a stretch out of it, very, very slowly and carefully, because I didn't want to upset her. But the stretch was good once she allowed it, but she did not want me working there. So it was kind of one of those things that you just kind of play it by ear, and if it works out, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But in general, sweet little Daisy is adorable. She is quite painful. I don't really think she should be ridden at this point in time. I think she needs some more body work and some time to recover from that. But I think saddling her and riding her is very painful. So I don't know. Let's talk about her a bit more and just kind of make a plan maybe, or just kind of, I don't know. Let's see what you want to do and go from there. But she is absolutely adorable and very, very sweet. So I hope to see her again, and I hope she's feeling better and I can see her on different terms. But again, let me know what you think, and we'll go from there. Thank you.